In today's episode of Feng Shui Living, I'm going to share with you what you need to know about the exterior of your home. So often we think in Feng Shui, all we need to worry about is what's inside, but it's also important to look outside. Welcome to Feng Shui Living, the podcast designed for busy women who want to de-stress, live with intention, and create a home that truly supports their well-being. Each week, I'll bring you practical tips, insightful ideas, and simple strategies to enhance both your home and your life. Let's get started. Hello. Welcome to this episode of Feng Shui Living. I am your host, Lisa Morton. I'm happy you're here, and I'm happy you're here for this specific episode because it was actually an episode that was inspired by a client's question. So she sent me an email this morning saying, "Hey, I listened to your most recent podcast about the front door while I was on my morning walk. And I was looking around my yard thinking, wow, how does this affect the exterior of my home?" And I was like, wow, this is really important. We need to get into this. So we're talking about the exterior of your home. Is this important when considering the feng shui? You betcha. It is so important to look at what's going on. So I've been doing a lot of home real estate reviews lately. A lot of people are looking at homes and they'll send them to me, and it's basically like a 1-hour consultation. Look at it and tell them what they need to know. I recently worked with a woman who had a home that was actually on a dead-end street, and we had to navigate and talk through that. Does it mean it's a solid no? Not necessarily, but what you need to know about not only at the actual structure inside, what that says about the feng shui and the energy of the space, and how you can alter it, but also what's going on all around it. So we're diving into the exterior today. This really focuses a lot in feng shui following form school. So feng shui developed into all these different schools or sects of feng shui over time. And I always think of form school as like the OG, right? That's where they really focus on the physical shapes and the forms. Form school teaches how to look at the surrounding land, whether it's a mountain, a river, a lake, a pond, maybe a hill off to one side, and how to read that and understand how that will affect the energy of our home, because it certainly does. It's also important to look at roads, driveways, arrangement of trees, plants. It can also all affect our home and our life. So form school was first documented during the Song Dynasty. It was 960 to 1279 AD. And then feng shui moved into other forms, other styles like compass, or other styles that focus more on the bagua. The style I practice, interior alignment, instinctive feng shui, is actually combination. So we study form school and then add some of those newer approaches to feng shui so we can understand and honor the ancient knowledge and history, while also understanding that we live in a different world. And so we need to understand how to use that understanding and knowledge from the history and update it and bring it into our normal living daily lives. So I want to talk about a few things that I think you will want to consider with your home. Number one is the command position. I talk about this a lot in the interior space, specifically the bedroom. If you have a home office or if you have an office space, I'm always talking about the command position. This is when you put yourself so that you are in a supported position with a solid wall behind you. We'll talk inside, solid wall behind you, and you can see anything in front of you. So if you have a home office, I don't want you facing a wall. I want the wall behind you to support yourself so you can see the door. In your bedroom, I want to make sure your bed is against a solid wall. Oh, I just stayed at a hotel not too long ago that had a half wall with a bed. I did not sleep, but we want the bed against a solid wall and a view of the entry door into your bedroom. Now, when looking at the surrounding land, the overall structure of your home, it's best to mimic that. So the ancients wanted a mountain behind for protection, maybe some hills, some trees on the side, and then a clear view in front so they could see any enemies coming their way. We want to mimic this in our homes. You might live in a snug subdivision. You might live in an apartment. That's probably a discovery call. Go schedule a 15-minute discovery call on my website to navigate that. But say you live in a subdivision or you live in a smaller property and there isn't a mountain behind. Well, what can you do? We can energetically connect to the trees behind, or maybe plant some trees. Maybe there's a hill that you can connect with. So we can connect with that nature on a deep level and ask it for protection. I also like to bury some stones like tourmaline, obsidian, hematite, even maybe some smoky quartz. One time I buried a line at the back of my home. It was open and exposed, and I was not feeling safe. And this is a great solution for that. So there's several things we can do. We want that solid protection behind us. And then we want to see anything in front of us, see anyone who might be coming towards our home. So we want a rather clear path. Of course, if you just listened to my front door episode where we did the deep dive in the front door, we want that front door visible. We want to be able to see out. Not only do we want to see the front door and make sure the shrubbery isn't overgrowing, but we want to see out too and see who's coming to our home, who's walking up the driveway, who's walking up the sidewalk to our home. So make sure that the shrubbery is trimmed back for both reasons. And then make sure that you can see what's coming. Do you have trees in the way? Or maybe shrubbery out by the street that blocks the view? Now, there have been some instances where I've recommended people plant shrubbery or trees or plants to almost create some protection, but that's a very specific instance. That depends on the roads and streets and driveways, so we'll get into that in just a minute. But remember, this command position is so important. That brings us a sense of stability, it brings peace, and it brings calm. I briefly mentioned the plants and flowers up front, but they also affect the energy throughout beyond just that command position. Be mindful of what you're selecting. We always want to select softer, rounded leaves. Plants that feel nice and fluffy, maybe kind of silky and nice. We want to avoid cacti. Especially, I had someone recently who had a cactus at her front door. She really needs to go listen to the front door episode. But always avoid cacti if possible, and nothing spiky, sharp, no spiky, sharp plants at the front door. Instead, bring something beautiful to your front door, a vibrant flower, maybe a pot with some pinks and yellows that really just feel uplifted as you're walking up to that front door. That will send the energy there. So check in with your plants and flowers. And then I want you to look at the road, the driveway, the street. It is always best to have some sort of soft meandering drive. If we are on a street that goes in front of us that's moving very fast, energy might miss us. We need to slow down and be like, hey, you, stop at this house. We also want to avoid two major things. One is being at the very end of a T. So the energy, the cars are driving down the street and you hit a wall there, right? We don't want to be at the end, certainly. And that was the client who was on a dead-end street. She was very concerned about it. And after I actually looked at it, I thought she was at the dead end, at the very end. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this is not going to be good. But then I actually looked at the maps, and she's all the way up the street. It's okay. We did a few things, few tweaks. But the main thing I wanted her to do was to reframe and to rename it and not call it a dead-end street. Think of the energy of dead end street. That's not very good feng shui. It's not very positive. So I had her rename it. And she was coming up with a few different options. She's like, I'm going to take down the street sign and put up a new one, my own made sign with a new name on it, which I loved. I don't know if that's legal to take down a street sign, but it was a great conversation. So you don't want to be at the end of a T, a dead end. And also, cul-de-sacs can be tricky. I lived in a cul-de-sac once. It was not a good house for multiple reasons for me. But the cul-de-sac also brought just a lot. When you live on a cul-de-sac, the energy is spiraling around that circle so fast, it's maybe not even going to get you. And it also can bring just the energy of so many people into your space. I felt like my neighbors were always watching me. I felt like my neighbors were always looking at me. They were always in my business. They always wanted to do things. And I was in a position in my life where my career was really important. And I worked a lot. And when I came home at the end of the day, I didn't want to be social. I didn't want to do those things. I just wanted to rest and relax and put my feet up and watch a movie and not have to socialize. And the cul-de-sac did not support me in that. So be mindful if you are on a cul-de-sac. Again, if this applies to any of you, this is not a sign to stress, to worry. It is just a sign that you may want to look at it through a Feng Shui lens. And of course, you can do that for free with my 15-minute discovery call or dive deeper if you want. But remember, you are not doomed if you don't have a mountain behind, if you are not in that command position, if you live on a cul-de-sac. It just brings us the opportunity to maybe make some shifts, okay? So just a quick, short, sweet episode all about the exterior. And yes, it is so important. Thank you, Amy, for suggesting this topic. If you guys have a topic you want me to cover, then message me and let me know. I'll be happy to get into it. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. Of course, this supports not just me and my business, but my entire team, so we can keep providing amazing podcasts. Also, don't forget to check out my VIP subscriber episodes, where for $5, you can get tons of juicy bonus content. All right, we'll see you at the next episode. Take care. Special thanks to our sponsor, Elevated Living School of Holistic Design and Feng Shui. For more information, head over to the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review, and share this episode with a friend. We'll see you next time.